Now, soy has been praised, it's been demonized, and slipped into just about everything we eat. Okay, so is it good? Is it bad? Or something in between? Now, a quick history to talk to you about soy and the American diet. Now, soy was not promoted as a health food. It was promoted because it was cheap. In the 1970s, as many of us remember, saturated fat became public enemy number one. And companies rushed to replace fat in all of their products with sugars and carbohydrates. And the government, in the same time period, pushed by the Secretary of Agriculture, Earl Butz, and remember, I know that name because I lived in Nebraska, where Earl Butz came from, decided to subsidize farmers for producing corn, wheat, and soybeans. It resulted in such a huge overproduction of corn, wheat, and soybeans, do those three names sound very familiar to you, that soy, wheat, and corn began being put in almost every ingredient in every protein bar, salad dressings. We made oil from corn. We made oil from soy. We made sugar from corn, high fructose corn syrup, because these things were overproduced and really cheap. So it's really no wonder that these products entered our life in huge amounts, much more than ever before. So this wasn't about nutrition. This was about simple economics. Now, unfortunately, as all of us know, we've been paying a price for our health. Life expectancy has now decreased for 4 straight years, and that's something that none of us ever expected was going to happen. It's the first in modern history. Okay, now, why is most soy on my no list of the yes and no list? Now, I'm sorry. Soy is a legume, and beans in general, legumes, are loaded with gut-damaging lectins. These are protein molecules that are really good at producing microscopic holes in the wall of our gut. Now, most people are eating the wrong forms of soybeans when they eat them. Now, there's also emerging evidence that there are estrogen-like compounds in soy. And depending on who you read, either the vegan literature or the anti-vegan literature, you will hear soy demonized as promoting breast cancer because of its estrogen-like compounds, or being protective against breast cancer because it blocks receptors. I actually fall down on the side of the vegans, that the soy estrogen-like compounds may actually be safely blocking the estrogen receptors on cancer cells. So that's not why to avoid it or to use it for that matter. Another recent discovery that I talked about in Gut Check is that unfortunately soy also contains a type of lectin that's called an aquaporin. And aquaporins are incredibly important to know about if you have MS, if you have leaky brain, if you have leaky gut, because aquaporins are part and parcel in another immune activation attack on neurons in the myelin sheath. Unfortunately, you cannot pressure cook the aquaporins out of soy, unfortunately. Now, you can pressure cook soy like any other bean to destroy the other forms of lectins, and you can be tested for whether you react to the soybean aquaporin or are susceptible to that. My advice is if you have MS or any other demyelinating disease, you ought to avoid soy at all costs. Common soy products like tofu, edamame, soy milk, and soy flour are unfermented soy, so the lectins stay intact. But fermented soy products or fermented or specially treated soy are actually part of my program. So what are the worst parts of soy to avoid? Well, I already mentioned soybean oil. It's ultra-processed, it's full of omega-6, it damages mitochondria, and it blocks hydrogen sulfide production, which, believe it or not, is a bad thing. Edamame. It sounds healthy, but these are immature soybeans. They're unfermented and high in lectins. But pressure cook them and they'll be fine. Tofu. Now, most tofu is unfermented unless it says otherwise, and is still very lectin heavy. You can pressure cook it, but quite frankly, it's probably going to be a mushy mess. Soy milk. It's highly processed, it's often sweetened, and it's lectin rich. Soy flour, you see this a lot in baked goods, snacks, and even gluten-free products. If it's in there, avoid it. However, soy protein, if you see it as an isolate or hydrolyzed, you have to see one of those two words, the lectins have been removed. That's true of other bean products, like peas. If you see hydrolysate or isolate, those lectins have been removed. But beware, most soy protein, most pea protein, that's not been done. And why is it being used? It's cheap, folks. The other thing that's interesting is soy protein concentrate. That's not isolate or hydrolysated, so don't buy that. When I was a professor at Loma Linda, we used texturized vegetable protein, TVP. This is actually soy protein that's been defatted and extruded under extremely high heat and pressure. Clever Adventas, they were detoxifying soy. So you'll see that TVP, texturized vegetable protein, does appear on my yes list, and that's a safe product. Soy-based meat substitutes, veggie burgers, fake meat, soy cheese. These are usually ultra-processed. They're using not the isolates of soy, and you really want to avoid them. Okay, there is good news. Why fermentation makes all the difference? Well, cultures have always used fermentation to break down the harmful lectins or other anti-nutrients in the foods that they're going to eat for calories. And soy is no different than that. Fermentation can be used to make soy safe. Fermentation also produces great compounds that are helpful for the gut, such as postbiotics. So soy that hasn't been fermented, stay away. Where is fermented soy found? Well, miso is fermented soy. Natto is fermented soy. Tempeh is fermented soy. But be careful with a lot of tempeh in the United States. Many of it has been cut with other grains, like brown rice, like bulgur, like corn. Try to find true tempeh that doesn't have any of those additional fillers. And they're all really quite safe, as long as it's fermented. Now, soy sauce, unfortunately, most soy sauces in the United States contain gluten, but there are gluten-free soy sauces. Tamari is usually gluten-free, but to avoid any hassle, just use coconut aminos, which really taste exactly like soy sauce, but it doesn't have the danger of having gluten in it. Finally, fermented soy, like many other fermented products, contain these postbiotics that are called polyamines. And how do you remember polyamines? Well, poly want a cracker. Polyamines sounds like polyphenols, but these polyamines are actually really good for protecting your mitochondria from mitochondrial uncoupling, and they really do boost metabolic flexibility. So these polyamines are found in, for instance, aged cheeses, they're found in mushrooms, they're found in tea leaves, and they're found in fermented soybeans. So centenarians for years have been using fermented soy, but make sure it's fermented. And polyamines in certain fermented foods may actually be one of the secrets to the French paradox. Polyamines are not just in red wine, but they're in aged cheeses and fermented foods, which are so popular in France and the Mediterranean countries. So fermentation makes all the difference in not only making a potentially very harmful substance like soy into actually a very beneficial substance. I also get a lot of questions on fermented bean curd. If you see the word fermented bean curd, that's the key word. But just remember that most tofu is not fermented. So always look for the words fermented. So no, soy is not the enemy, but like other no lists, you can make it not only harmless, but actually beneficial to you depending on the fermentation process.
More amazing episodes just like this one
Watch now. Fermentation is the transformation of that product through microbial activity.